Okay, done with the Mohawk 10. Guess what else is next on the bench, right? Couldn't wait to get done with this fella. What my hold up was, I had to order these two surge resistors there. I talked about the surge resistors in the last video on the Mohawk, that it's got two big surge resistors that when you first turn on an amp, those capacitors got to charge, and when they charging up, they pull a whole bunch of juice. That's why your lights dim on a linear amplifier, and that's why bigger amps have soft start, which have resistors like that. But on the bigger amps, once the amp gets a charge after a couple seconds, there's a relay that clicks in to bypass those resistors, and they're not in line full time. On smaller amps like this little Pride and the Mohawk, they just leave them in line all the time, and I didn't have any of these in stock, and I wanted to order the right one, so we finally got them in. It's a power supply, no RF around, so wire around is okay in this case. This is the Nomad board, and I put the parts on it. I put these big giant 10 amp diodes on there. They're so wide that they don't even fit, together next to each other, so I put half of them underneath, so I think it works out pretty neat. These things are about 10 cents nowadays, so I just go ahead and get a bunch of these, and I use these. Overkill, unnecessary. I think the original used 1 amp here. They're all 1,000 volt. An original used 1 amp, but since I can get these for a dime, I just go ahead and get these, 10 amps now, stuck them in. Again, surge resistors, inline all the time, so you lose a few volts. But who cares? This thing runs at 2400 volts unloaded, and if you bypass those surge resistors, you might get 5-10 more volts at most. There are people who I have seen, I've been doing this for 40-50 years now, and I've seen people who like to experiment and bypass stuff like that. So they'll get something like these surge resistors on an amp, and they'll run a wire across of them. They don't know what they're for. Like, well, what do you need them things for? Well, they limit your power. So they'll run a wire across of them, and they're like, I got 3 more watts, 5 more watts. I'm a genius. I've seen people on a radio mess up or bypass the AGC circuit, and they'll say, hey, I'm a genius because the weak people, they hit me the same, they hit me with a half a pound or 1, but not the strong people, they come in and hit me with 35 pounds where they used to hit me with 8 pounds. It's like, I boosted up my receive. I'm a genius. No, all you did was cut the AGC, which tries to keep those close people from blasting you away. That's all you did. Another guy I saw, he took tubes like for a tram that uses sharp cutoff pentoids, and he replaced them with regular linear tubes. And he's like, I got a tube with higher gain. It's more linear. It's like, no, there's a reason, manufacturers put in them sharp cutoff pentoids. Again, it's that AGC. It keeps, people from coming in and just blasting you out the door, on your receive. So there's really no genius trick that anybody can figure out that make a amp or a radio do better than what the factory did. I mean, there are some things like you can put better filtering on there, but you're not going to cut a wire or in an amp or juice it up and make it do 10,000 watts because you're a genius and you figured out something that Einstein and Nomad and Stoner and nobody else, Dr. Browning and them, you figured out something that they didn't. Yeah, okay, you keep going with that. But anyway, I thought this was going to be a short. I got long-winded. This is the Nomad upgrade board. for the power supply in a Pride DX-300 or KW1, same amp except the KW1 is high drive. And again, surge resistors. It uses a full rate bridge with these banks of diodes, 6 capacitors on the high voltage power supply bank. Originally came with 100 UF at 450 volt, but since I got these 220 UF 500 volt caps laying around, I put them in there. This is the original 2-board power supply that is in the amp. And again, these filter caps dry up. If you can see like that little bumps that they have there, that's usually a sign of a glitch or a short. If it's not glitching now, it will very, very soon when you see them, you know, start bubbling up like that. Not good. I think on some other videos I mentioned that in the old days they put capacitors, and sometimes they put resistors across the diode bank. You know, they use equalizing resistors like they did in the caps, and they also use caps to, you know, catch a surge. But I think nowadays with modern diodes, they did that to protect the diodes. Back 40-50 years ago, diodes were not a dime, and, you know, a little more expensive, and they were, you know, not in tolerance like they are now. But nowadays with modern manufacturing, the tolerance is much tighter. They work, you know, all in tolerance, all good, all equalized, so they don't need equalizing resistors. And even on this Nomad board, there are no equalizing resistors and no caps. And you don't really need the surge caps too. It's a good kind of an idea, like, you know, yeah, if there's a big surge or spark, it'll jump across all the caps and kind of save the diodes. But it's more trouble than it's worth, because let's say it does work and it catches a surge, but, you know, one of these short. Now the other diodes are going to, you know, catch more of a load, and they're gonna, you know, be heavier and start shorting out, and it's just a cascade of problems that can happen with that. Or one opens. It even looks like this board here, something had happened at one time, because that one looks all original, and that one, it looks like somebody replaced the diodes and a couple of the caps across it. And like I say, it's a better idea to not do it nowadays. Just go with good diodes. And, you know, they got 3 amps, 6 amps, and now 10 amps. And since the 10 amps are a dime, I just go with the 10 amps. Why not? And the original board was 2 boards. This is a full weight bridge. But since back in the day they couldn't fit it on one board with, you know, the technology they had with the capacitors and all that, they had 2 boards, and they had interconnects and wires going across the 2 boards. And as Nomad said, some of the spacing was too close together. That one's actually really clean. Like I say, this Pride has low miles. That one's got a little bit of darker wear there, but not bad. But you know, I get the Nomad board on all of them, at least the power supply, and I'll probably get the low voltage board too, but it's about 120 bucks, and you know, I'll get to it one day, but not today. So, but I always get the Nomad Power Supply board, one board, nice unit, modern, snap-in caps. He sells a complete board with all the parts on it for I think about 90, 100 bucks. But since I got my own parts, except I had to order these surge resistors, I already got my diodes, already got my caps. I got, you know, pretty good inventory. I just went ahead and got the board only and put my parts on there. One last thing, these 2 resistors are for the metering circuit, so you can measure plate current. You know, in the book, in the manual, it's got a way to go to the back in that 3-pin thing, and you can measure plate current out of it, kind of Mickey Mouse. And Nomad says, and I agree, just, you know, get rid of that. On the Pri KW1, it's got a plate meter. You know, the meter can go from watts and plate current. So on that, you would need this for the plate meter to work. But on this amp, who uses the metering thing in the back where you got to hook up your meter and adjust it and play with it? Kind of useless. And if you can see on the Nomad board, it does not have them resistors. Just the surge resistors, the diodes, and the caps, and that's it. I like this board. It's nice and neat. I've never had a problem with the Nomad board Enterprise. So if you want to keep it and something that works and no problems, upgrade to the Nomad board. Get rid of these. I got probably 4 or 5 sets of these in the dungeon somewhere, because you know, what are you gonna do with them, right? I'll probably take them to Dayton next year and give them away, freebies. All right, that's it for this one. We stay tuned. Gotta play with that guy now. Bye.